If you're thinking about moving to Raleigh, North Carolina, then this is the video for you. We are doing a full map breakdown of Raleigh and all the many suburbs that make up what we call the Triangle, North Carolina. I wish I had this video some years ago when I made the move here myself from Dallas, and I completely chose the wrong place to live and almost regretted moving to Raleigh. I do not want that to happen to you. So I encourage you to grab a pen and a paper and have an open mind. This is going to be a bit of a lengthy video because it's essentially a complete masterclass on everything you need to know about the different areas of Raleigh. So feel free to pause, take notes, come back to it later, jump around. You might even need to watch it twice over to really soak it all in. But by the end of this video, my goal here is you're going to walk away knowing exactly where you should move and which areas you should just completely ignore altogether. All right, we are here in Google Maps, zoomed out looking at the entire triangle. If that term is new to you, we call our metro the Triangle because of the three cities that make up the Triangle NC. That would be Raleigh, Durham, and then Chapel Hill. If you see on the map, it forms kind of a triangle or a pizza slice, and we are known as the Research Triangle. And so a few important things you need to know about us is right at the heart of that triangle is the Research Triangle Park. This is the nation's largest research park, and it is a huge job driver for us and a growth driver here for us in Raleigh. So a lot of the high-paying jobs by corporations like IBM, Lenovo, Cisco, and a lot of pharma companies are going to be headquartered in this area, very central to the Triangle, North Carolina. Now we've got a lot to cover in this video, and we're starting to release more in-depth map tours of specific parts of the triangle. Now starting on the Raleigh side of the triangle, if we click on downtown here, everything you see in red is what is officially the city limits of Raleigh. Now we recently did a full map tour of Raleigh. You can check that out later on the channel if you want a super in-depth view of just Raleigh. As you can see, Raleigh is made up of really downtown Raleigh, a little bit of South Raleigh, a little bit of Southeast and East Raleigh, and a giant block that makes up North Raleigh. But what makes up downtown is going to be this primary strip right here. If we zoom in, you can see kind of the west side of downtown here and the east side. The west side has a little bit more things to do. I'd highly recommend checking out the Raleigh Beer Garden, for example. There is a lot of cool restaurants, shopping, dining, you name it here in the west side here. There's also plenty of nice apartments, some that are, very good walking distance to a lot of cool things to do. The east side, you're gonna see a little bit more of like art spaces and museums and conference centers. This is also home to the state capital of North Carolina, if you didn't know. Now off of downtown Raleigh, we can kind of segment this circle here into a few different buckets, and we actually have an official term for this circle here. It's called the Inner Beltline. You might see someone say ITB. That is the Inner Beltline. This 440 that turns into 40 and forms basically a lopsided circle is what we call that Inner Beltline. If we zoom back out, this giant circle that connects all the suburbs that we're going to be talking about today in this video, well, that is what we call the Outer Beltline. So you will commonly hear locals refer to it as the Inner and Outer Beltlines, something that they don't exactly explain to you when you move here, and you kind of have to learn for yourself. Back in the Inner Beltline, outside of actual downtown, which isn't super massive or expansive compared to like Dallas, where I moved from, and other big cities, then we start to see different kind of buckets or areas, right? On this north side of downtown and into this northeast side here, northwest side, all these areas, they're primarily made up of historic homes, especially right in here near historic Oakwood, East Mordecai. So outside of the bubble that makes up downtown, then things start to get a little bit different. While in downtown, it's mostly skyrises, right? Condos, apartments, etc. We start to see more historic homes on the north side of downtown. For example, historic Oakwood. This is one of the most popular places to go see really cool historic homes. It's great. It's not exactly the kind of place that you want to live unless you are okay with paying really high prices for really old properties, and then you have to upkeep them according to the standards and guidelines that they've set because they're historically protected. But a really cool area. And there is a lot more historic homes. Some aren't historically protected, but they are from the early 1900s and upper 1800s out in kind of these neighborhoods here. Some very popular older neighborhoods, for example, where resale prices are very high, pushing $1 million plus for older properties would be Hayes Barton, 5 Points, to name a few. These are very popular because they're nice, they're walkable, they're close to downtown, but it's not usually where most people end up. It again takes a specific type of person who really wants that. Now, as we get to the north side of the inner Beltline, we're gonna see this east side over here, which is mostly going to be shopping, commercial, right? You're gonna have some entertainment venues, you're gonna have a giant Costco, which the line is always out the wazoo. You're gonna have some of the best unlimited made-to-order sushi at Umaya's Sushi right here. I go there as much as humanly possible until my bank account can't take it anymore. We also have a Trader Joe's and a lot of other good stuff in what we call Midtown. It's kind of between North Raleigh and downtown, and so that's where it gets that name from. This west side, we start to see $1 million plus properties, very competitive, surrounding the Carolina Country Club. Now they're a little bit on the newer side, mostly not new construction, but newer. And so these neighborhoods in here are going to be very premium, they're going to be very competitive, and they're also going to be very nice to drive through, as is typical being around a country club. Now, if we start making our way down to the west side of downtown Raleigh, we have North Carolina State University. You can see that here. Now, another unique thing about the triangle is the fact that we have not one, two, but we actually have three universities, not just any universities. These are tier 1 universities, meaning highly competitive, highly ranked. And we have all sorts of smaller universities and colleges throughout the triangle. And one thing you'll learn pretty quickly about the Triangle NC is we're highly educated. You can see it in the amount of colleges, you can see it in our test scores. We're also, high income earners thanks to a lot of the tech jobs and pharma jobs. And we do get a lot of traveling researchers. A lot of our workforce is coming out of University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, Duke University, or NC State. Those are the three that, each of the three cities that make up the triangle, they all have a very strong college. So you got really good options to choose from if you're looking to go to college, or if you do have kids that are going to be entering into the college system. Most of this is going to be college housing. We're going to see a lot of apartments, older condos, that kind of stuff. Prices are still pretty premium, being close to the university, being close to Raleigh. It's going to be more student housing than anything, and faculty housing. And then this southwest side is mostly green space. They preserve trees and trails, and they just really shine in the fact that we're a very wooded, nature-friendly city. That's part of the reason that I moved here. So we have Lake Johnson Park, we have Lake Raleigh in here, we have golf courses, we have the sunflower field at Dix Park, and Dix Park makes up a lot of this space here. Very expansive, always new additions, great time to go hang out with the family, kids, dogs, etc. One of the oldest amusement parks, Pullen Park, in the United States, which is pretty cool. Very, very family-friendly place that I encourage families to check out if they're in the area exploring. Now, when we start to get into this east side, we're gonna notice a few things. First of all, we're gonna see a real mix of properties. So up in these quadrants here, we're gonna start to see still older properties, but they're gonna be closer to the 1950s and 60s. So a little bit newer, not quite historic. And the prices are not going to be as high. Now, I'm not saying they're cheap. A lot of the properties in here are closer to your 3-bed, some even are 2-bed, 1-bath, so they're smaller ranch properties for the most part. I'm starting to see a lot more teardowns happening in this area where they are building up massive, modern-looking, new construction single-family homes and townhomes and duplexes. But while a typical single-family house that is larger and oftentimes it's got great curb appeal, it's got an HOA, that's going to be over here closer to that $1 million price point and up. On this east side, we might start to see homes in the 500s and the 600s. Now, I think you can get a lot better for your money in some other parts of the triangle that we're gonna get into. But if you really wanted to be close to downtown as cheaply as possible and you didn't want to be in a condo, then I would say your best bet for a single family under that kind of 500 price point is gonna be southeast of the inner Beltline down in here. And while it's easy to look at this southeast quadrant and just say, hey, the prices are lower here, there's a lot more that goes into that, and every neighborhood is definitely going to be uniquely different. The closer you get to downtown, the more pricey it's gonna get, the less house you're going to get. If you're further back here near Worthdale, things are gonna be a little bit better there. But even when we go past Highway 40, which is that part of that inner Beltline here, and start getting into, well, let me turn on the red marks again. If we start getting into what is actually considered South Raleigh and Southeast Raleigh, which isn't much, things even change dramatically from there. For example, while you were dealing with mainly homes in the 50s and 60s up in here at the best, then you start to see a few more teardowns and new construction happening. And even in these neighborhoods down here, you're likely to find a home in the 90s or even early 2000s, and you can find a home in the upper 3s or lower 400s with a lot more space. And I really like some of these neighborhoods that are in here, because what it does is it gets you quick access to all the green space and all the amenities in here. If you're a college student, or if you want to be near a college student, then you have NC State within a few minutes of you if you live down here. And let's say you work in downtown, or you just really love going out all the time, then this might be a great little pocket where you could end up and even own a home for not an insane amount of money. Now this road right here, 401, as you notice, it's going to take you up through the heart of downtown Raleigh, and 401 is a very important road because if we zoom out, it's going to tee off and take you into all the northeastern parts of Raleigh and the suburbs surrounding it. It'll also tee off into another main road that we'll get to later called 70 or Glenwood, and that's going to take you to the northwest side of the triangle, including all the way into Durham. So now when we look at the south side, 401 is going to take you straight through downtown, and then it's going to tee off. Mainly, you're going to be going right here. You're going to be going into these two suburbs, Garner and Clayton, both of which we're going to cover. Now, the last little bit of the south portion of Raleigh that we still need to go over is going to be this section here and this section here. This is the rest of South and Southeast Raleigh. Now, this area in here, house prices are going to be very similar to what we saw over here. I'm not as big of a fan of this area personally because you're not as close to a lot of the fun stuff over on the west side, and we're seeing a little bit more development action happening in here than we are over here. But you're gonna see a little bit better prices over in this pocket. Now, what I really like, even more than probably both of these, would be the southeast portion of Raleigh. This neighborhood, this one, and all the green space in between, that's developable. It's within city limits, so it's gonna get attention, and it is. There's a lot of new construction communities that are popping up in this southeast quadrant, even as far north as up here, constantly with great incentives, lots of new inventory, and the prices are not bad. Imagine a brand new single family home and you're able to get into it for, the 400K price point, sometimes even a little bit lower. That's really, really nice. The downside to being over in this area, other than the fact that it's just under a lot of development right now, so there's gonna be a lot of changes, is that, well, you do a little bit of driving to get to a main road, you're not as connected, and the driving distance between Southeast Raleigh and, say, the airport, which is located right here, next to the Research Triangle Park, where a lot of people are gonna end up relocating here and having to commute into what we call RTP, Research Triangle Park. And so that commute is gonna be close to as low as 30 minutes, but it could be 45 if you're dealing with heavy traffic, which, let's face it, it's going to happen. Our traffic is not as bad as other major cities, but it is getting worse, and we're growing really fast. So, people keep coming in every day. Things are gonna get worse on the traffic end until they get better. One other important thing that I should note is this outer belt line. If you're a little OCD, you're probably noticing that it doesn't actually finish. And when I first moved here, it was landing somewhere around here. So this whole strip that you're seeing that leads almost all the way underneath Garner, that didn't even exist when I lived here. They've been expanding this outer belt line for some time now, and they are actively tearing down trees and paving concrete to connect Nightdale to where they've left it off just below Garner, this will be a complete circle finally. Sometime by 2027 is the estimates that they've given us. Now they've delayed it a ton, but if you do end up in Southeast Raleigh or in some of these other pockets we're gonna look at, you will be a lot more connected in just a year or two than you are today. Something to keep in mind. Okay, real quick here, if you are new, my name is Benjamin Carver and I'm helping people just like you every single day relocate and find a home in Raleigh. Not just a home, but the right place to call home. And if you want help doing just that, I'd love to meet you. Encourage you to call the number at the bottom of the screen. You can scan that QR code, or you can click the link in the description, set up a time to chat with our team. Now let's take a look at the far west side of Raleigh. We already covered the NC State area, but we have this entertainment district over here. This is where Lenovo Center is, home to the NHL Hurricane team, the Carolina Hurricanes. And a lot of what you're seeing here in yellow is owned by NC State. So there's a lot of campuses, there's stadiums, there's practice fields, clubs, all sorts of stuff in here. Now what they are doing is they're investing billions of dollars to try to turn the surrounding space near Lenovo into a massive entertainment district with all sorts of other stuff. Right now it's kind of spread out. We have the state fair down here, which is pretty fun. You know, we have some random stuff like the Raleigh market, which is NC's largest flea market, which is pretty cool, but it's, see how everything's spread apart? They're wanting to make it more of a walkable entertainment hub with so much more restaurants and bars. It's got some cool stuff though. We've got the Drive Shack over to the west side. Things are just a little bit spread out here. This is a great area to, you know, go book a hotel while you're visiting, be close to downtown, close to the airport. A lot of things going on. You got local museums. A lot of them are very nice and very free. And you've got trails galore. So you've got so many trails and parks everywhere you go here. Notice the Memorial Forest. Notice when we zoom out, this giant blob near the airport, which is Umstead State Park. It is one of my favorite places to go for a walk, go hiking, you can go fishing. I mean, so many things you can do, and it's all free. This area south of kind of that entertainment hub, this is going to be homes that were built between the 60s and the 90s. Pretty affordable housing in here, and it does get you kind of close to all the action. There is a fair amount of development happening in here where they are renovating homes, sometimes tearing and building up new, but it's kind of that in-between zone between, you know, real dense suburbia over here in Cary, which we are going to be getting to Cary later in the video. So make sure you stick around for that because, well, it's one of the most talked about, most popular suburbs in all of the Triangle, and chances are you've done your research and you already know about Cary. Well, we're gonna be getting into that. But this zone between downtown Raleigh and Cary, you know, it's a great area for transitional housing. It's the kind of area where you might buy in for a few years and then move on and find somewhere else to maybe plant more roots. Some people have planted roots in here for sure, but being that close to all the entertainment and all the action up in here, that might start to get annoying after a while, all the traffic and all the noise. It also works really well as like student housing, for example, and a lot of investors will even buy properties in there because they're easy to rent out. Now let's break down North Raleigh. It's a very different feel than you'll find in the inner Beltline. It's different than South and Southeast Raleigh. This area right in here, you're gonna see a wide variety of older houses, newer houses, a lot of apartments and condos in here as well. There's some nice parks in here, some random hubs with restaurants. And then as we get to like this north side here, we have Crabtree Valley. Also a great place to find a hotel like the Raleigh Marriott right here at Crabtree Valley. This is home to one of the larger, nicer malls in our area. It was just bought out by some Cali investors, so they're gonna be turning it into something pretty nice and pretty modern in the next few years here. But this is a great transitional area with a lot of just things that you would go in and do. You know, you wouldn't exactly buy a house like right next to it because the traffic in here is horrible and there's a lot of commotion. But there are some nice apartments and whatnot in this area, little bit of new construction. And then you have Highway 70 here, or Glenwood. That's the road that goes straight to downtown, takes you to Crabtree, and also takes you right up to the RDU airport here, and even over into Durham. So everything off of this road is going to be a lot of shopping and dining. Nothing too crazy, right? We've got our Walmart, we got some, you know, random stuff like Lowe's. We do have a Target in here. We have, you know, movie theaters, storage, some restaurants. First Watch is a great brunch place I like to go to with my wife, and we even got like a Bolero in there. So just a lot of random hodgepodge stuff, right? Gyms and whatnot. All the real estate that's tucked in between 70 and this giant blob that is Umstead State, a lot of these homes are very nice. They have quarter acre, half acre, acre lots. A lot of these are newer construction, some brand new, pushing that, 800, 900K, $1 million plus price points in here because they back up against gorgeous trees. They're nice and tucked away and they get a lot of space. This northwest kind of triangle slice here in Raleigh is also very, very desirable, and homes go like that even in a slower market. For example, Stonehenge here is one of the more popular neighborhoods. It does have some brand new construction builds that they built recently, and they're pushing 1 million, 1.2 million, 1.3 million. But there's a lot of resale properties between 1970s range and 1990s in neighborhoods like Hampton Oaks, where you could get a decent looking single family house with 2,000 square foot in the 4s and 5s, which is a lot more reasonable than what we were seeing in downtown. And what's nice about Northwest Raleigh is that it's home to one of two kind of major lakes. This is going to be Lake Lynn, and I used to live in Hampton Oaks, and I loved it there. And I would walk to this lake and walk the trails around the lake almost every week. There's a lot of nice apartments surrounding it, and the surrounding real estate, again, is pretty affordable. You can find a house that maybe needs a little bit of fixing up. As you get to kind of this north side of Northwest Raleigh, that's when you do see more stuff like Stonehenge, where it's newer construction, it's higher prices, and much larger lots. And you also just start to see a lot more green space up here. So, you'll see your Publix, which is a good sign that, you're in a nice area when you see a Publix. We'll see massive neighborhood parks, and, you'll start to see a little bit of more like private schools and nice academies. And one thing that people really love about Raleigh in general, we have, really great schools here in Wake County, but Northwest Raleigh and some of the other suburbs on the Cary side that we'll look at, they have really strong schools that people just fight over. And one of them would be Leesville. So here at Leesville, you have the middle, the elementary, and the high school surrounded by a nice park, lots of resources, and the surrounding neighborhoods off of Leesville Road here, they're very competitive. Springdale Estates is one of those neighborhoods that does have like quarter acre, half acre lots, a few new construction, and it's right across from the school. You can find a home in the 600s to 800s in a lot of these surrounding neighborhoods. And yeah, they're a little bit on the older side, 90s maybe, but they're pretty large. They're built for families that have lots of kids and they just want to be close to everything, close to shopping, close to great schools, you name it. Now I'm going to keep working my way east on here. We do have parts of Raleigh to cover that are kind of north of the outer belt here. It's a completely different ballpark, so we're going to get to it. Hang with me here, but let's go into kind of prime North Raleigh, which I would call most of this blob right here. First, you have that second lake that I was talking about. That is going to be Shelley Lake Park, very similar in size. Again, a lot of nice apartments around it, but there's also lots of townhomes. And this kind of section here, it has older homes built in the 70s, 80s. You might see smaller houses, so smaller single family houses, a lot of townhomes, condos even. This is a great area where if you do want like kind of that transitional housing where it's something you buy for a few years, maybe fix up and then move into something better and bigger, then this would be a great area for that. And I also go to this lake all the time. It is directly north of one of the most hottest parts of our market. Before we look at that, I did make a free Raleigh relocation guide for 2026. It has literally everything you need to know. If you want to check that out, just check out the pinned comment down below, or you can go to www.raleighncguide.com/2026. It's my gift to you. Now, looking at North Hills, this is just past that Costco we looked at in Midtown. This is what we call our second downtown. And I know looking on the map, it doesn't look massive, but this is the place to be. It's where all the young people are going, and not just the young people, but it's got everything. It's got amazing apartments, luxury apartments. It's got, a mall, it's got movie theaters, it's got Chick-fil-A, it's got high-end restaurants, and then it's got, your typical stuff. It's got coffee shops. It's got a gorgeous park, like a very, very small, Central Park type vibe in the middle of North Hills. And then on this east side, we even have a bunch of new development in terms of more apartments, but also we're having companies start to bring in like, banks and other businesses offering jobs so that if you lived in this North Hills area, you could technically walk to work. You've even got a hospital over on this east side. So it's really its own strong hub. And that is why the surrounding real estate in these neighborhoods like Lakemont, for example, or Ferrier Hills, surrounding North Hills is very, very premium. This is like developer alley. They're tearing down all these small old homes, which still are going for $500, $600 plus $1,000. And then they're building multi-million dollar properties. Some of the hottest, best builders are throwing out these gigantic mansions in this area. And that's really the trajectory that North Hills is going. And if you own a house there, well, you're just praying that a developer comes in and throws a bunch of cash at you. Or maybe you hold out because the trajectory of the surrounding area that is North Hills, it's crazy. It really is. And it's very nice, it's walkable, and it's just the proximity to everything, in addition to still having access to great schools. But it's not for most people because of the prices. What I really encourage people to do is go more to like this north side up here, near like Six Forks, for example. It's cheaper than this northwest side. You still have access to a lot of great schools. You still have a massive shopping center up here with a Whole Foods, your Panera Bread, you've got Target, and a bunch of other good stuff in here. It's a really cool shopping hub up in here. Lots of good stuff, and the surrounding real estate gives you a lot of variety of homes at all sorts of prices, and there's bound to be a good fit, a good neighborhood for you in here, unless you want new construction. And we'll look at some suburbs throughout the video that have more affordable, better new construction homes that might be a much better deal for you than being anywhere in Raleigh. Now, what you're gonna experience over here is pretty affordable prices and a good mix of newer construction. So you won't see too many brand new construction communities. You will see some interesting communities like Headingham, which is a golf course community where you can find homes from the 90s and 2000s and the 3s and 4s, which is pretty impressive. You'll see that this far east side is pretty undeveloped still, and this whole outer realm is technically in Raleigh, and it's so much land that they're just building constant new construction communities. And honestly, this northeast section is kind of my favorite because we have so many new communities popping up in this bubble here that get really overlooked, and yet it's a quick shot onto 540 into RTP or to the airport. You still feel very connected to everything, and you can find new construction homes in the 4s and 5s in here. Giant homes, 2,500, 3,000 square feet. I'm a big fan of this area over here. This little Y shape in here is home to one of the larger shopping hubs here in the triangle. Pretty much anything that you can think of that you would need is going to be in here. Some of it's a little bit older, more established, and then some of it is like brand new. One of our larger malls is here at the Triangle Town Center. I'm not gonna go into every business here, but there's a lot of stuff to do on this northeast side, and it just doesn't get as much attention, right? Okay, we are going to move up into our first real suburb of Raleigh, and that's going to be Wake Forest. And this is actually where I currently call home. So I moved from North Raleigh to Wake Forest about a year and a half ago. And there's a few reasons why. And I've done a full map tour of Wake Forest. I've done a full driving tour of Wake Forest here on the channel. Definitely check those out if this is going to resonate with you. But this, especially on this east side of Wake Forest, it's new construction corridor, as in there's so much new construction. You can find a single family home in the 3s, in the 4s, and the 5s, and if you find something in the 6s, it's gonna be massive. It's gonna be very nice inside, and you're gonna be able to make customizations. All the builders here in the triangle are really buying up land and hammering in this east side of Wake Forest, this north side of Wake Forest into Youngsville, and even Rolesville, which was named the fastest growing small city in North Carolina last year. And it's clear to see why, because it looks small on the map. It's a tiny little blip compared to Wake Forest, but all the growth that's happening in Northeast Raleigh is making its way into Rolesville as a secondary Wake Forest. It's already extremely popular with families. The schools in Rolesville are very competitive. For example, Granite Crest here, I have clients who have been trying to get into Granite Crest for over a year. It has, a lot of great amenities. It has quick access to schools and parks. It's close to downtown Rolesville, and it's just so hard to find, a home in there for sale, and it's always very competitive. And so, while we have dichotomies like that happening, we do have a lot of new construction options opening up to solve the ever-growing demand for affordable new construction in the triangle, since Raleigh just ain't doing it. We have some really cool things over here, like the Fantasy Adventure Park. It's closed for the winter. It's almost summer now. It's 90 degrees today. But we have just really cool man-made lake in here. Lots of activities, including scuba diving and the works. Again, I could spend a whole video just talking about Wake Forest, but just know that this south portion down here is going to be mostly communities built in the 90s and 2000s. Pretty affordable. You get a lot of house for the money. And off of this road here, this is Highway 1, which is gonna connect with 401 from downtown. This is a straight shot north and south. It's gonna take you pretty much up into the heart of Wake Forest. And this left side of one is gonna be all Raleigh still. So Raleigh actually runs up all the way to here. So all these communities here are considered Northeast Raleigh. Falls River is one of the better communities, in my opinion, in Raleigh. We featured this on videos here on the channel before. You're right off of one of the largest natural lakes here in the Triangle, which is Falls Lake. Such a great time, lots to do there. I really love going there. And you have major parks and trails and camping and boating and fishing, you name it, right? And this community is master planned. It's got amazing amenities. There's a bunch of different, communities from condos, townhomes, single family homes, kind of mini mansions throughout here. And it's just a gorgeous community, very well planned. You've got, a hospital and plenty of shopping, newer shopping just south of it. And then you've got even more reserves. Just you're surrounded by nature, especially once you get closer to Wake Forest, which is very, well, forested. Now, as we get closer into Wake Forest, we're gonna see actually a little bit of that historic kind of vibe. Pretty typical, especially in smaller towns, to see historic housing near the heart. And so a lot of this surrounding is going to be older houses. Neighborhoods down here, no, they're closer to 1990s and 2000s, but the direct surrounding of downtown is very historic. This area up here is very historic. A lot of those are protected. Downtown Wake Forest is cute. It has Wake Forest Coffee Company, which I'll go to with my wife a few times a month. It's got, Wake Forest Farmers Market. So they've got some cool things going on, but it's really pretty much just this one strip right here. And so you'll find that things to do are a little more scarce and a little more spread out in Wake Forest, but there's just a lot of mini pockets. For example, here on what we call Main Street, there's gonna be a whole other pocket where it's gonna have your Walmart, escape room, random restaurants, really cool bakeries like Paul and Jack. It's gonna have Culver's, First Watch, Dunkin', the factory. We did a driving tour of Wake Forest. The factory is really cool. It has indoor ice skating and all sorts of other stuff. I can't hammer it enough. There's plenty to do in Wake Forest. If you're on this east side, there's not as much shopping, dining, retail yet. It's coming, but that's where all your new construction is going to be. As you get to the north side, you'll still see new construction, and you're gonna see new construction with larger lots and better prices. And once you break into Youngsville here, it is so much green space, untapped. You can find new construction in the 400s with an acre. That is not going to be the case forever, but Wake Forest and Rolesville really need to get built out before Youngsville becomes larger. But it is a really cool place. One important thing I should note is this road right here, 98. That is Durham Road. It's gonna take you all the way across Falls Lake and all the way over to Durham. If you live in Wake Forest and need to go to Durham often, like I do when I'm going out and showing homes with clients, it's a direct shot across the lake. It's a gorgeous drive. There's really not a lot of development. It's just kind of peaceful, at least for now, and it just takes you straight to Durham within 30 minutes. Pretty cool feature there. And again, if you live in Wake Forest, you're probably heading into the many different parts that makes up Falls Lake on a regular basis. You've got some other communities to the north side of Falls Lake. Mostly this is reserved for your premium new construction communities, like Hazen Trees is one of the top 55 plus resorts. Gorgeous, $1 million plus price points. And then you'll just have a lot of random one-off houses and small communities in here. If you want like a custom new construction home with a lot of land and you're willing to pay a pretty penny for it, then somewhere along this road, you're going to find it. And that leads me into this kind of northern section above 540. Just know that most of this green space is there because of the watershed around Falls Lake, so we can't overdevelop. That means that a lot of the houses and communities in here, they are going to be expensive because the land's expensive and they're gonna have large lots. So if you do want quarter acre, acre, half acre, 2 acres, there's houses like that all throughout here, ranging from $600,000 to multi-million dollars. Best chance for new construction, I didn't say cheap new construction, but more like custom new construction with large lots, you're gonna find them up in here. So this is kind of like the premium part of our market on the north side. Very, very, very popular. The only other part that's, more premium than that, I would say, or at least competes with it, would be what's happening in North Hills. And this northeast section right here, just west of the Triangle Town Center we looked at, is the Northridge Country Club. And so the surrounding real estate here in Northridge, especially the Northridge Estates, very premium. They've got some cool shopping and dining nearby, but you're just paying a real pretty penny to be close to that country club. this is where we're also seeing a lot of multi-million-dollar properties being built actively right now. Okay, I hope you're enjoying the video so far. Put a lot of work into these videos. If you are enjoying it, do me a favor and just leave a like. And if you do have a question, please drop it in the comments and I will get you a thorough response. The goal of this video is to make you as well educated as possible so you can make the right decision for you and your family. Okay, now looking south of Wake Forest and Rolesville, all this green area is unincorporated Raleigh, and it's gonna be a while till that gets developed. But again, I'm a big fan, especially of this bubble right in here, where we're starting to see more and more communities pop up. And along 540, that outer Beltline, we're seeing communities start to pop up along here as well. As we move into this section right here, it transitions from East Raleigh, where neighborhoods might be in the 3s and 4s, sometimes in the 5s, and they're built 90s, 2000s. We start to transition into Nightdale, where things get newer, prices get better, and honestly, there's a lot more happening in Nightdale than there is in East Raleigh. It's like the development kind of skipped over this section here and went into Nightdale. I'm a big fan of Nightdale and it often gets overlooked, but as you can see, there is a lot of retail happening in here. Everything in yellow you're seeing is either commercial or it's retail. And so we're seeing all sorts of stuff from Target, and you're seeing, Home Depot and some of those basics, and IHOP, right? Saltgrass Steakhouse, Alpaca Chicken, that's a pretty cool place. And it just keeps going. Walmart, I know there's gyms in here, Lowe's, CVS, Food Lion. Now the one thing we're noticing in here is it actually has a lot of stuff, right? Like your daily Chick-fil-A's in here. It doesn't have a lot of unique or high-end local stuff. That's not what Nightdale is, at least not right now. But what's really nice about Nightdale is not only is it just convenient and it's a good commuter suburb, because you can quickly hop on to 440 or 540 and get to downtown or over to the airport side. Yeah, you're pushing that 30 plus minutes commute range there, but depending on where you are in Nightdale, it's still pretty convenient. And the biggest incentive here is that there's a lot of new construction. Now, we've seen a lot of people move to Nightdale recently and prices have definitely gone up. They're starting to run out of land where they can actually develop. But there still are communities like Dreamfinders, for example. We have Davidson Homes in here and some other really good builders, some locals, some more like your Lennar types. And they're building all sorts of communities kind of around the heart of Nightdale at this point. So off of this main strip, you have Nightdale Station Park. And that pretty much just got developed out. They are building on kind of this northeast side here with Dreamfinders. There's a lot of really good schools and academies in the area that are very popular. We have YMCA, a giant park, very, very popular. Nightdale Station Park is one of those places that you should take the kids and you should go check out. And it is home to literally one of the best barbecue places in the United States. It is repeatedly on top lists, and the guy who runs it literally was on all sorts of network TV shows. So I'd go check it out and plan on sitting in a long line, but in my opinion, it's definitely worth it. Now, as exciting as Nightdale is, and I really do love Nightdale because you can find a pretty large home, very family friendly, and it might be in the 400s, or you can go new construction in the 500s and up. Now, I love Nightdale, but what's happening here in Wendell Falls, just southeast of Nightdale, is pretty spectacular. It's not massive on the map, and as you can see, it's actually very separated from core Wendell, which is, one of the outer rim suburbs here in Raleigh. Wendell Falls is its own master plan community. It is home to a lot of builders. It's getting a lot of attention. We did a full walking tour of Wendell Falls. We showed the real estate, the amenities. We showed what it would be like to live there. You should definitely check that video out because it's pretty cool. When you walk in here, you're gonna be really impressed with how nice and luxurious and modern everything looks, and everything's very, very new in here too. And what's really cool about Wendell Falls is it doesn't just have, some nice shopping and dining and new construction. It's also just gorgeous and so well planned. There are amenities everywhere. Everything's connected. You have trails connecting all the neighborhoods. So much development action is happening in Wendell Falls, and it's quickly becoming a very popular sub-market here in Raleigh, where a lot of people are actually skipping over East Raleigh and Nightdale and going straight to Wendell Falls because they can get a really cool house and a really cool community for not a ton of money. If we compare that to what's happening in Wendell, which as you can see is pretty small on the map, it's a little bit bigger than actual Wendell Falls, but things are just not moving very quickly here. So within the core of Wendell Falls, it's a lot of older properties, some historic, some just, not the best taken care of, a lot of smaller properties, 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms at max. There's a few kind of brewing companies and coffee shops, but it's very scarce here in actual downtown Wendell, and it feels like you're taking a step into the past. That's not the feeling you get in either Knightdale, and especially not in Wendell Falls. Outside of core Wendell, you will see random new construction communities kind of on the surrounding, and there will be so many more new construction communities around Wendell for the foreseeable future. If you click on the button here, all this is owned by Wendell, and everything else is going to be unincorporated Raleigh. There's plenty to develop, but there's just not a lot to do there. So if you live in Wendell, like on this north side, you're going into Wendell Falls and Knightdale every day to do your grocery shopping, hit the gym. 15-minute drive is not horrible, but it's also not the best. What you are getting is better prices, and if that's what you love, new construction, better price, and you don't care about that day-to-day stuff as much, then I'd encourage you to actually just go straight to Zebulon. So the thing about Zebulon is it just gets a whole heck lot cheaper and nothing really changes. In fact, the commute from Zebulon to Knightdale is almost the same as the commute from Wendell because of the positioning. So when you are in Zebulon, you are finding single family homes in the 300s. Yeah, you heard me right. And we're not talking about shacks either. Decent single family homes, nothing fancy, but you could also find a custom single family home for 500 or 600K with land in Zebulon, and there is, again, so much space to be developed. A lot of our clients are leaning that way if they do want more of that ranch home, or they do want more of that, no HOA or light HOA. You want a giant workshop, you want to, get outside and have ATVs, that kind of stuff. Zebulon's really good for that. And they've got resale homes that are even more affordable and townhomes that are in the low 200s brand new. So pretty cool things happening out on this east side, but just like Youngsville, it's going to feel rural and undeveloped because it is. Now, outside of these three suburbs, not only do you have just a bunch of land and not much going on to the north of that between them and Rolesville, you have the same thing to the south. So once we get past Southeast Raleigh, we have really just a lot of nothing, a lot of land, a lot of houses that are, worn down or tore down. Then you'll find a random new construction with a bunch of land, and next to it might be a mobile home park. It's very spread out in here. Prices are great, but there's just not a lot going on until you hit Clayton. And I love Clayton. We, of course, did a full walking tour / driving tour of Clayton. You should definitely check it out, especially this east side here, Flowers Plantation. It is one of the better master plan developments in the Triangle. It is a shame that when you're out here in Clayton, you are so far removed from the rest of Raleigh that for a lot of people, it doesn't end up making sense. And we've seen time and time again that young people in their 20s, 30s, they regretted moving out here just because it is, something that seems appealing with the prices and it's nice, but you feel like you have to drive 45 minutes to an hour just to go do things. And that's, not the best for everyone. We do see a lot of retirees come out here actually. Carolina Overlook by Del Webb, we've seen a few of their homes here on the channel. They've got a really nice community. Del Webb always does it, really well out here on the Clayton side, the north side. But this Flowers area is even further away from Raleigh, but it is the place to go if you're gonna be in Clayton. A lot of newer and even new construction development happening out in here. Very affordable, think brand new homes in the 300s and 400s, lots of space, really good competitive schools, even though a lot of Clayton is going to be in Johnston County. It's no longer gonna be in those Wake County schools, but people are still moving there in droves, lots of families, and there's a lot of cool stuff to do there. There's private schools like the Thales Academy, for example. You've got, of course, at the heart of the community, you've got grocery shopping, you've got gas station, you've got restaurants and cafes, very family friendly leaning. Definitely not any nightlife or anything like that, but you've got even Publix. It's surrounded by gorgeous man-made lakes, that really makes the whole community just look very beautiful. It's very fun to walk around and drive. You can walk around the lakes. So really cool community. It's just very separated. Now, in between that and actual Clayton is mainly just golf courses and a bunch of land. And once you get into downtown Clayton, there's not a ton going on. There's a few random things, random gas stations, random restaurants, but it's pretty low in terms of things to do. And the surrounding real estate is gonna be a real mix. You're gonna have, a lot of the older homes, and then as you get in the outskirts, you might find homes in the 90s and 2000s. Not a ton of new construction communities, surprisingly, in core Clayton, but as you start going around the perimeter of it, yeah, there's gonna be plenty still in those 3s and 4s very affordably, townhomes in the 200s, brand new. Again, you do have to have the conversation of, am I okay with being, very removed, at least from now, from the triangle? Once we finish 540, Clayton is gonna be a lot more in on the action than it is now, so that's something to think about. Okay, and now that leaves us with Garner. Garner is another commuter suburb, kind of similar to Nightdale. I'm a bigger fan of Nightdale. I think Nightdale is more family friendly. I think that it has, better, things to do, better amenities, more new construction, more shopping, that kind of stuff. If you live in Garner, you're really going into downtown a lot. And if you work there and you just want, semi-affordable housing that's near downtown but not inside the Beltline, Garner could work for you. Especially at this kind of T section here, we do have a lot of the basics like Walmart, random restaurants, Lowe's, that kind of stuff is going to be in here, but not a ton of options. And then as you get into like the core of Garner in here, really it's going to be a lot of communities built between the 70s and 90s. There's some large single family homes in here and some really nice communities. And then there's other communities that are gonna be a little bit on the smaller end or a little bit more on the run down end. So it's really more of a hodgepodge of what you're going to get, especially, until you get to this east side. I love East Garner. It's, sandwiched in between Clayton and Garner. And this is a massive newer shopping development. And you can just feel when you drive from downtown Garner into the east side that it just seems to get nicer as far as now you have a lot more options at the White Oak Crossing. You have your TJ Maxx and you have your Chick-fil-A and you have wholesale clubs and you have way more restaurants and you have medical, orthodontists, Target, the list goes on. You've got even stuff on this north side here and it's all very new and very nice. I could spend a lot of time, and I have spent a lot of time here in this part of Garner. And what's nice is the surrounding real estate, especially on the south side, tends to be a little bit newer. You'll see more HOA communities, while most of Garner is HOA less. So you have a lot of control over what you can do, but also if your neighbor paints their house yellow, you can't stop them. Now, west of Garner is also kind of unincorporated Raleigh. It doesn't fall within city limits, which means you're avoiding city taxes. That's pretty nice. And you're getting a lot closer to Cary and Apex, and you're still close to downtown, which is a benefit for a lot of people. Now, there is literally nothing to do in this southwest portion of unincorporated Raleigh. There's nothing. There's a few parks, there's Lake Wheeler, that's pretty cool. There's some golf clubs nearby, but really out here you have nothing but protected land, land owned by farmers, and then random new communities. So there's going to be brand new construction communities like the Exchange of 401 we recently toured on the channel, somewhere out in here, where you can find pretty decent homes in the 4s and 500s that are a good value. You just have to be okay with being, again, a little bit removed, but not near as much removed as you are in Clayton, surprisingly. So I think one day this portion here of Raleigh will get built out more, but we're not there yet. Now I'm going in depth as much as I can in this video, but nothing's going to compare against my ability to sit down with you and actually ask you questions, hear about your story, your goals, where you're coming from, and what you're trying to do to really help you pinpoint on this map where you should be looking and where you should just really get out of your mind and get rid of the distractions. If you want us to do that for you, I encourage you again to give us a call at the number at the bottom of the screen, scan the QR code, or click the link in the description. Now let's look at Fuquay-Varina, and I've heard all sorts of pronunciations on the suburb. Very funny. This once was Fuquay and Varina, and for one reason or another, they decided to join up and become Fuquay-Varina, so a little history lesson for you there. But it's actually a pretty big suburb considering when we zoom out here, we are a good 45-hour drive away from the heart of the Research Triangle. And if you were to get to Fuquay-Varina and try to drive all the way up to like North Durham or Chapel Hill, even longer. Now, the reason that people move to Fuquay-Varina is, well, part of it is still gonna be in Wake County on this north side, and you have quick access into some of the hotter suburbs of our market, which would be Holly Springs, Apex, and Cary. So what we call the path of progress, which means as new construction runs out, there's no more land, prices start going up in some of these larger, hotter suburbs. The new construction and the demand for new construction is going to start pushing south. And so we saw that happen from Cary to Apex, Apex to Holly Springs, and the trickle is making its way towards Fuquay-Varina. Now, it's going to be the longest timeline for Fuquay-Varina to really become a hotspot for our market, and it'll never be the hotspot that North Raleigh is, or that the Inner Beltline is, or that Cary is. But what's nice about Fuquay-Varina is they've actually done a good job of developing it much quicker than Wendell and Zebulon, for example. And so even though there's not a ton, you do have some pockets where you actually have a decent amount of shopping, and like staples like Panera Bread out in Fuquay-Varina and Cookout and Chick-fil-A. That's actually pretty impressive considering how far out you are. And Fuquay-Varina is just exploding with new construction. You'll find new townhomes starting in the upper 3s, single family homes starting in the upper 4s, lower 5s, and they've been successfully pushing those price points higher and higher as they grow larger and larger. And you've got all sorts of builders in here, from Lennar to David Weekley and Davidson Homes, Pulte, you name it, all developing around the outer perimeter of Fuquay-Varina. The main part of Fuquay-Varina here on North Main Street, it's pretty built out. And so you are going to see a lot of older housing, because this is a suburb that used to be very far removed from the Triangle. And so there were a lot of smaller, older, sometimes dilapidated houses, but we're seeing a large revitalization happening in most of Fuquay-Varina because it's starting to get a lot more love and attention. I'm actually a big fan of Fuquay-Varina. Not a ton of things to do in here outside of basic shopping stuff, but the communities that they're building are starting to add more and more amenities, and I'd say it's a lot closer again than like Wendell and Zebulon to getting more entertainment style things. And again, being in Wake County, a lot cheaper prices for still having access to some really top rated schools. So it does make sense that people are starting to choose Fuquay over being in Holly Springs, for example. And the line between Fuquay-Varina and Holly Springs, it gets a little bit blurry, because if you look at the property lines on Google Maps, notice how it goes almost all the way up, and then it goes even further northwest up into basically Apex. Very interesting how the property lines work. So if you're looking at a new community that you think is in East Holly Springs, you might be really surprised. Now, looking at Holly Springs, really what Holly Springs is it's this giant circle here, and then mostly what's on the west side of Holly Springs, west of 55 here. So Holly Springs is actually one of the most underrated suburbs, in my opinion. I recently made a video where I was talking about, which suburbs were going to be over-talked and overhyped, and which videos were actually not getting enough attention. Now, looking at the property lines for Holly Springs, you can see it's this circle here and a lot of the west side. And of course, it's that west side between Holly Springs and the Sharon Harris Reservoir. Another cool place where you could go out and go for a walk and enjoy, the nature that Raleigh offers. But this west side is where the newer construction of Holly Springs is happening, and we're already seeing price points kind of skyrocket in Holly Springs, where new construction is starting to be in the 600s, 700s, 800s, and up, which is just mind-blowing considering what they were just a few years ago. But most of that new construction is going to be on this west side, like the Regency at Holly Springs, for example. And there's all sorts of other communities in here, while still having quick access to downtown Holly Springs and a quick shot up into Apex. And Holly Springs is definitely one of those places where you could commute from Holly Springs to the Research Triangle Park, or to the airport, or to downtown. You are at that 30+ minute mark, so most people who live in Holly Springs, they are hybrid, remote, or they don't actually work in kind of those normal hot spots. But lots of families moving into Holly Springs. A lot of my clients with kids are moving here because the schools are great, being in Wake County, a lot of cool private schools, or they have quick access to Apex and Cary for even more options. And there's so much development. Look at all of this development that's happening in here. We have even some top employers in the area, like Fujifilm, with a giant plant on the west side of Holly Springs. A lot of people actually work at that, and they're high income earners. But if we zoom in here, you've got Target, you've got Olive Garden, Starbucks, Panera Bread, Marshalls. So you've got a lot of shopping here at the heart of Holly Springs, and it's home to a massive park. This is Ting Park, and they have tennis courts, they have athletic complexes. This is the place that you would go and you would hang out with your kids, or hey, just with your dog or your wife or your husband. You would go here all the time. At least I would if I was living here. And Holly Springs is very active. They've got athletic fields down here. They've got parks pretty much everywhere. They've got lakes to the east side. Some of those communities on this east side you know, they've got large lots and they've got lake access and great amenities. So we're seeing lots of HOA driven communities in here that were built. So we're seeing more HOA communities with amenities that were better designed than what we would see, you know, in the heart of Fuquay-Varina or even in a lot of Apex, which we'll be looking at next. And so, you know, if you want a single family house that's going to be upper 300s or lower 400s on the resale side that's only 20 years old, then Holly Springs is going to be a great place to do that. If you want super affordable new construction, then there's an argument that there's better suburbs for you, like some of the ones that we've already discussed. Now, once we get up into Apex, things get very, very interesting. Same thing here, that west side of Apex is going to be mostly new construction. We've been out to the MI Homes retreat at Friendship, and they've got homes that are base price $600,000. Some are going for $700,000, $800,000, but they are gorgeous, non-basic homes. So there's a lot of really cool features in them, very nice community. And there's all sorts of communities like it that have been built or are being built, especially on this southwest side near Friendship. Absolutely blowing up right now. But even as you get to this northwest side, a lot of relatively new or brand new homes up here. And what's really cool is this pocket in here is super built out. So you've got all sorts of stuff. You've got restaurants, you've got shopping. Literally, I mean, look at the map here. Anything you can think of is going to be in here, and it's very expansive. So this is what we call Beaver Creek Crossing, and it is kind of sandwiched between Apex and Cary, and very, very popular for both locals on both sides. You get access to that being on the west side here. Obviously, prices are a little bit steeper being in Apex, being closer to everything. But this south side of Apex is actually very affordable, and you can find homes that are larger lots, and you know, they're just not as HOA like amenity driven. There's not as much action happening in this south side, as you can see from all the green space. It's not as developed yet, and some of that land is just owned up or it's protected. But you can find homes in Perry Farms, for example. You might find them in the 3s and 4s very affordably. As you get to the heart of Apex, same thing. It's going to be a lot of historic homes, older homes, and there's a train tracks running right through the heart of it. It's kind of like their thing is trains. But I'm not a big fan of living close to trains. So one thing you have to be, you know, careful of is if you're near downtown or near, well, really this entire train track that runs through the heart of Apex, you don't want to be right across from it. You're going to hear it. It's going to affect your resale value, all that kind of stuff. Downtown Apex is currently being renovated. They have, you know, all sorts of construction happening along this main road here on North Salem Street. There's a lot of cool like restaurants in here, and you know, random pubs and Killwinds, which is a cool ice cream place, and all sorts of stuff. Most of them pretty local. It's actually a really fun time, even though it's just one strip. You know, it usually gets pretty lively at nights, but right now, again, they're pouring a lot of money into it because, well, Apex has a lot of money coming into it as house prices increase and more people move there. This north side of Apex, you know, you've got, you know, some private schools, you've got nice playground and park, you've got a huge skate park, which is pretty cool. And one of the things they're kind of known for is right in here, this multi-purpose field, which has the giant Apex logo in the middle of it, big soccer field. And so, and even right here, they've got a giant senior center, the town center. They've got a lot of, you know, cool things going on, groups you could join, a lot of action, and a little bit of new construction. They're starting to push near the heart of Apex, new construction, but it's very small housing, as you can see from these lot size. And they've even got a little bit of new construction townhomes, but the prices on those are really, really premium for how much house you're getting. And that just shows how Apex is starting to run out of land in the core part of it. And of course, understanding that the north side of Apex is going to be the most competitive, the most desired, because you're just getting closer to Cary and closer to the rest of jobs, airport, etc. Finally, you have this southeast side of Apex, and this is really no man's land. You have random golf centers. You do have, you know, a little bit of a Publix hub here, but most of what you're seeing in here is actually going to be part of Cary. So for example, if we click on Windfall here, this is actually going to be a Cary neighborhood and Cary schools. And so the way that the property lines work are just kind of interesting when it comes to, I mean, property lines are just weird. Look at this. It's the west side, central, and then it goes almost all the way down to Holly Springs. So people just assume when they look at the map, and I understand why, that you'd assume this is Apex, this is Holly Springs, and this is Cary. Maybe you'd assume this is Raleigh, I don't know, but it's not. So if you want to be in Cary, For example, Lockmere is one of the top neighborhoods in Cary. It's on a gorgeous lake, technically 2 lakes. There's all sorts of micro neighborhoods in there, all with great amenities, all with quick access to Whole Foods and a whole plethora of restaurants, shopping, hospitals. We have some of the best hospitals with WakeMed and Duke Care here in the Triangle than most cities, which is one reason that people move here. And you have access here at Lockmere to the golf course, golf club, you have the nature preserve, you even have cool amphitheater, and you'll see a wide variety of housing options and prices. Lockmere is definitely one of those premium markets that people just fight over, and it's usually a really cool. And if I have clients coming in that think they're gonna be in Cary, I take them straight to Lockmere. That's what I just did with a client who was in town, and we were checking out all the different neighborhoods in Cary. They absolutely loved it. They were surprised that you could have a house that was literally on a lake with a boat dock, something that you just don't see very often here in the Triangle. Now, Cary is massive. It is the largest suburb here on the Raleigh side. And so to do a detailed breakdown of all of Cary, that is gonna be a whole separate video for the future that we'll throw up here on the channel. And there are all sorts of popular neighborhoods here in Cary. To name a few, Carpenter Village is very, very popular. Preston is also another master plan community that people just absolutely love, but you have so many more here, from Park Village to McGregor Downs. And of course, this is just a repeating common occurrence here. The west side is where the newer construction is. Now, new construction and Cary, it's an oxymoron. So when we look on this west side, newer is the key word. We're talking 2000s. If it is brand new construction, it is going to be pushing that $1 million plus price point because of how desirable the land is. Between West Cary and Jordan Lake, a lot of this land is still watershed protected, and so we can't build Cary out much further than it is already. But this west side does enjoy having newer shopping, newer communities, lots of amenities, having nice private lakes. And so it is very common to find single family in here starting in the 600s, but a lot of it. So it is common to find houses here in Amberley, for example, that are starting in the 7s, the 8s, and the 9s and going up from there. Now, I love this part of Cary because you are literally 5-10 minutes away from Research Triangle Park. And so we're gonna see a lot of high income earning families on this west side who do fly out of the airport often, and they do drive into work often. So that's very popular, and it's a good solution if you wanna be in Cary and you don't want an older house. Because a lot of Cary, especially surrounding downtown Cary right here, is going to be old. You're gonna have some historics surrounded by homes that were built dating back to 1950s. But even these south neighborhoods, even though they're very nice, they have access to Trader Joe's, they still have nice lakes, and they're pretty nice communities and very well sought after. You're talking about homes that were built in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s at best is really what you're going to find here. And as you get closer to the north side, you're gonna find that a lot of these neighborhoods are even older. They're in the 40s, 50s, 60s, and then you'll have a bunch of random apartments and townhomes as we get closer to Lake Crabtree, which is a really cool part of Cary. It is a massive lake, lots of things happening here. They're talking about pouring a lot of money to make this an even cooler place. They're talking about adding whitewater rafting and some other stuff. This was for the longest time owned by the airport, and recently the airport had to sell it off to the city to development, and it's kind of all up in the air, right? But this is like a really cool place that you might go to very often, and driving on this road, Aviation Parkway right here, takes you straight to the airport. Very beautiful drive and very convenient. So if you live on this north side, this northwest side, you have homes that were built somewhere from the 90s, 2000s, and a lot of these homes are going to be very master planned, very nice communities. A lot of them are on a golf course. A lot of them have quick access to Whole Foods and Target and all sorts of restaurants, shopping, dining, gas stations at the heart of the community. Little bit unique, but the one thing about Cary that people just love is if we zoom out here, all of Cary is very well planned. All the communities seem to really connect to each other via trail system, via roads. It's just very congruent, very, very thoughtfully planned. And so that's one thing that people really love about Cary is it's a mix of urban because it's massive and it has everything, but it's very, very dense suburban at the same time. That's one reason why Cary is just so desirable to so many in our market. Your best bet at semi-affordable housing will be the south side of Cary as you get closer to Apex. So McGregor Downs, especially over here near Park Village, you might start to find homes that were 600, 700,000. You might start to find townhomes that are in the 400s and 500s. But at the end of the day, Cary is not an affordable suburb. There's a lot more affordable suburbs out there that have newer homes, and the major trade-off here is going to be brand image, and of course not being as close to downtown and as close to the airport and to jobs. Now, right next to Cary, we have Morrisville. Morrisville is a tiny suburb. The property lines, once again, are a little bit weird. It is technically the closest you can get to the airport and to RTP on the Wake County side. So higher density, you're gonna see, more infill housing. You'll see a lot more townhomes, like in Kitts Creek. You're gonna see a lot more townhomes. You're gonna see, not as wide lots because they're trying to fill more people. And you're just gonna see that, especially Morrisville is known for being very diverse in, the demographics of people, because, you're at the melting point of the triangle. And so you're gonna get all sorts of people, you're gonna get all sorts of housing, but mainly that density housing here on the Morrisville side of town. And many neighborhoods share schools and, are even split between Morrisville and Cary once you start to get near Carpenter Village, for example. So you'll drive from Cary into Morrisville on 54 here and you won't even realize it for a while. But Morrisville is a little bit newer, actually. So a lot of the shopping and development and stuff in here, like this whole section in here, is actually much newer. New apartments, new restaurants, etc. And so this is definitely a live hopping place. It's definitely better for young working professionals than anything, and you're more likely to rent than to own in this area. But even surrounding it, there's not a lot, but there is some new construction that is popping up. Not affordably, we're starting in the 600s, 700s range and going up from there. But the big thing you need to know is if we pull up Wake County, which is one of the larger geographic school zones in the US, it is massive, it's covered everything in today's video pretty much so far. Those property lines, they stop right past the airport and right past Morrisville. So as soon as you get into Research Triangle Park, you are now in Durham County. Durham is one of those 3 cities that makes up the triangle. You can see the property lines here, but if I type in Durham County, you can see Durham County is actually very massive as well, mostly on this north side, but it shows you it cuts pretty much right next to Morrisville and then right past the airport. Very important to know because it's going to make a big impact on prices and on schools and everything else. But Morrisville still has you in Wake County, and it's basically a zero commute to everything. If you want I wouldn't call it walking distance, but if you want, as little time in the car as possible, Morrisville is going to be a great fit for you. Otherwise, if you want more space, I'd go to Cary or maybe Apex. Okay, now we are back into Raleigh, believe it or not. Just before we hit that Durham County line, we have Brier Creek. This is the most northwest part of Raleigh, and it's also one of the more popular parts of Raleigh. I love Brier Creek mainly because it has a massive amount of shopping. Brier Creek Commons here is one of the largest shopping centers here in the Triangle. It's got literally everything, and it was designed that way because it's right by the airport, it's right by RTP, so it needs to really, meet a lot of needs. And so it has the largest variety of shopping. It's got a lot of upscale stuff and then a lot of your basic stuff. And on this backside here, they're really starting to build out a lot of new, not only restaurants, but we're seeing employers come in and a lot of nice hotels coming in, like the Embassy Suites, for example, but all sorts of development happening here in Brier Creek still. Now, once you kind of zoom out here and look at this section, this is the Brier Creek Country Club and surrounding real estate. So it is a golf course. It does have amazing amenities, pickleball, pool, you name it. It's got everything you can think of. And you've got multi-million-dollar properties like estates here. You've got townhomes in the 3s and 4s, which are actually pretty cool. And then you've got everything in between. Now, everything's high HOA, but you get all the amenities. And if you're up here in Brier Creek, not only do you have everything at your feet, especially if you work in Research Triangle Park, but you also don't have air noise from the airport, believe it or not. Because of the way the runways are, you get air noise through most of Morrisville, and you get air noise through this section up here. So you're as close to the airport as you can get without having air noise directly above you, which is also super cool. As you get to kind of this east side past Glenwood, you know, it's a little bit more affordable than you would find in the country club, and you might have a community with $50 a month HOA or less. And so, you know, a lot of this is still in Wake County and very popular because it starts to get you into, you know, just better price points on the houses. But you have to be careful because that Durham County line, it goes straight through the heart of some of these neighborhoods. You might think you're in Raleigh, and you are almost certainly not, especially if you're finding a newer construction home. It is likely on that back end of the neighborhood, or once you start to get up into this pocket, it's very obvious you are in Durham. Now, Durham, it's a total beast, and we're gonna be breaking down all the different sections that make it up and finally landing in Chapel Hill. But friendly reminder, if you are thinking about making a move to the Raleigh, North Carolina area and you wanna find the right place to call home and buy the house that's going to be the right fit for you, then make sure you call the number at the bottom of the screen, scan the QR code, or click the link in the description. I would love to set up a time to chat with you about making the smooth move to Raleigh. Now, I'm going to break Durham into a few different buckets. Up here we have downtown Durham, and this is really the core part of Durham. It's going to be the most urban, it's going to have the most sky rises. They are continuing to develop downtown Durham, and they're really pushing to increase the height of sky rises. For example, there is a lot going in downtown Durham. Now, my personal favorite is downtown Raleigh because I think it's a little bit more walkable. But downtown Durham is very exciting for many reasons. For example, you have, you know, baseball games going on if you're into baseball. You have all sorts of performance arts. So Durham is known as being very artsy. They're also known for their food. So if you're in downtown Durham, you've got lots of events going on. You've got lots of nice restaurants, lots of nice, you know, music halls and museums and performance centers. And, you know, if you're going to go to the like symphony and see an orchestra, then it's going to be in downtown Durham. The surrounding real estate is just like any other downtown. It's going to be a hodgepodge. You're going to find a lot of skyrise condos, then you're going to find some historic homes, then you're going to find some teardowns and everything in between. The prices in downtown Durham are going to be more affordable than in downtown Raleigh. They're still going to be premium, right? You're still paying that downtown premium, but it is a little bit more affordable than you'll see in downtown Raleigh. West of downtown Durham is this massive conglomerate that is Duke University, and Duke owns this part of Durham, and the surrounding real estate here, in addition to being student and faculty housing, is going to be very, very coveted. And so we see houses move fast and we see prices very, very high. This area here is in a lot more demand than I'd say a lot of downtown Durham is, just because of Duke University. And Duke is one of the two major health providers here in the Triangle. With the Duke University Hospital System, they got Duke Clinics. This whole red section is all medical, and that's one of the things that Duke is known for. And so this is kind of where it all starts. But they've got a lot of cool things, from the Sarah P. Gardens, which is a gorgeous, basically free minus a few bucks to park, like massive garden around the main campus where you can go walking. It is very, very cool. It kind of gives me Central Park vibes a little bit, the way everyone's there and there's a giant open spaces where you're just overlooking. Some of the historic parts of Duke is, you know, gonna be right in here near the central campus. You've got really historic buildings that look like they're straight out of Harry Potter. Very, very cool scene. This surrounding area is all very, very, you know, central to Duke. As you get into this west side, you've got the continuation of the Duke Forest. So a lot of this is very protected, lots of trails as you can see. Just a really cool space, but there's not a lot of real estate happening over here, minus a little bit of university housing, mainly duplexes and quadplexes back in here for infill. You've also got another university, North Carolina Central University. Now it's not tier 1, it's not getting as much attention and as love as the other 3 that we've looked at in this video, but plenty still choose to call North Carolina Central their home university. It's definitely more affordable, and a lot of people who live in downtown or live in some of these neighborhoods here, it's very, very close. So you will see a wide variety of housing in here. You're still seeing higher property prices being close to Duke, being close to Durham, and lots of student housing in here as well. But you do see a drop in prices as well around North Carolina Central University. Nothing major, and mainly it's older properties, not always as, you know, well maintained, not as many like HOAs, that kind of stuff. But there's some good opportunities in here. If you hop over 147 into this like eastern portion of downtown Durham, it's just going to change depending on which neighborhood you're in. Some are going to be newer, some are going to be older, some are going to be fixed up, some are going to need fixed up. It's going to be a real hodgepodge again. It's not really until you get to this northwest section where it's a little, more uniform. You have the golf course, and of course that's because you're right by Duke Gardens. And even as you go further north, you still have a bunch of golf courses, and of course the surrounding neighborhoods, they're going to be premium, larger lots, larger homes, because that's kind of the demographic that they were going for when they built it. Now, there's not much happening on this north side of Durham, at least not yet. So I do have high expectations for the future as we continue to see affordability issues and a need for new construction. That is one thing that is very consistent across most of the triangle right now, is we just need more houses to keep up with the ever-growing demand. I mean, we keep making it on these top, cities to move to lists, and people keep moving here, and I'm one of those people, so I totally understand. I'm not mad about it, but that is kind of the catch 180 there. So as you get just north of 85 here, which 85 is interesting because it's going to take you up into Falls Lake. It doesn't connect you to a lot, but it does take you into, Hillsboro and the western side of the state. So it is a main road here. But once you get past 85, you have 501 that's going to take you north towards nothing. There's a bunch of older neighborhoods up here, but there's not a lot to do. You see a Food Lion, you see an Arby's and a Subway. That's about most of what you're getting on this north side. Now there's some random stuff, and they're starting to add more. For example, if we look in here, we've got kind of a mini kind of campus with some clinics and Duke going on in here. We've got some restaurants, Starbucks, a little bit more options in here on this strip off of North Duke Street. And this east side, look at how much is happening here in terms of schools, and also in terms of all the many like dentistries and health care centers and all that kind of stuff. We also have Chick-fil-A, we have Panera Bread, Freddy's Frozen Custard, Five Guys. So this one section right here is really all that's happening in North Durham. Regardless of where you live in North Durham, you're pretty much going into this one little hub here for most of your daily needs. And then if you need anything beyond that, you're going into downtown Durham and surrounding. Now, the reason people are moving up here is, again, because there is newer construction. But to be honest, we're not getting as much development action up here as we should be. We do have Lennar up here at Bull City, offering very affordable homes in the 3s and 4s. So the prices are great, but there's just not as much demand on this north side yet. So they're not developing a lot. Most of the neighborhoods that you're seeing up here, they're going to be older. They're going to have no HOA, and they're going to be somewhere in the 3s and 4s. So you get a decent amount of house, but you're talking about properties that are pretty old, being built in the 60s, 70s, 80s, some in the 90s. So there's not a big incentive to move to this north side of Durham, not yet, unless you're really priced out from here and you want to still be close to downtown. Now, where we are seeing so much more development action is going to be this northeast side and this east side of Durham. And this east side here, the zip code is 27703. This is the hottest growing zip code in Durham and one of the fastest growing zip codes in the triangle. And this is another new construction corridor that is just so crazy to watch how much development is happening. If we zoom in, we'll just see community after community after community after community being built here, and apartments and all that other sort of stuff. We don't have a lot going on in terms of, housing and dining. That has to come after people move in. But there is so much space to be developed, and just thousands and thousands of homes are flooding into this zip code here. This bubble here, it is more developed. Houses were built the last 20, 15 years, somewhere in that range. And they have a little bit of HOA amenities, nothing crazy, but everything surrounding where you see green space, that's all going to be like these neighborhoods over the next decade or so. And for now, you can find a brand new single family home, that's fit for a family, and it's going to be in the 4s or 5s. Or you could find, homes like Sweet Brier by Mungo, where they have higher, quality homes and way better amenities with pickleball and, things like that. And you're going to find that in the 600s or so. I'm a big fan of this area because it also gets you close to the airport, it gets you close to the Research Triangle Park, close to Brier Creek Country Club, close to all the shopping at Brier Creek Commons. And it even has a few things coming in, like for example, they built this Publix. This little random pocket right here has a bunch of newer like condos and apartments. So they're starting to really make way for all the incoming development that's happening. This area out here, outside of Brier Creek, is mostly older. There's a little bit of development, but most of the properties in here, they're on the 90s side, not new construction by any means. It's kind of a forgotten pocket that is just outside of that Wake County line. And so we do see prices drop from what's in Brier Creek to here, but there's just not a lot of action happening in here per se. But one thing we are seeing in here is newer construction townhomes that have been built in the last few years. And the best part is, the prices on them are great. They're in the 300s, low 400s. Same thing right in this section here. Seeing more and more new construction, pretty nice townhomes being built at affordable prices, which is just really helping with that infill housing because not everyone needs to start off with a single family home. Now on to another favorite part of Durham, that's going to be South Point, and that is this very south portion of Durham, just below 40. 40 is what takes you into Cary, it takes you towards downtown, and it clearly takes you right to Research Triangle Park. Having that basically 5-minute commute or less is super, super clutch, and one of the larger malls, I think the largest mall in Durham is here, the South Point Mall. All of this that you're seeing is development. There's so much to do here. All your needs for a day-to-day basis are going to be met at South Point. And so the surrounding real estate, especially on this west side, you can find a home that was built in, 80s, 90s, 2000s, somewhere in that range for 3s and 4s very affordably. And even in these pockets here, same age range, you'll find homes built somewhere around the 400s, maybe 500s. And so being that close to everything, it comes at a slight premium, but the prices are still pretty affordable for having everything at your feet. And there's not a lot of development that can happen outside of that pocket because of the lake. So you're not going to see a bunch of crazy development changes happening over the next few years here by any means. And that leaves us with this central portion of Durham just south of downtown once we get past the universities. That leaves us with two kind of major segments, the west side and kind of this east side here. This east side is mostly made up of Hope Valley Farms, and so there is a bunch of neighborhoods in this master plan development, and they are HOA driven, they have decent amenities, they're homes that were built in the 2000s, so not that old on the price range, and the homes are still pretty affordable. You got access to the Hope Valley Country Club, so optional membership, you can go golfing, you got great amenities, that kind of stuff. This is a very family-friendly portion of Durham as well. A lot of families will end up in here if they want to get into a home at a decent starting price range and still be very close to everything else. This west side is going to get a little bit more expensive because we are getting closer to both Chapel Hill and to Duke, and those both just drive prices like crazy. Not to mention, many of these neighborhoods are actually still part of Hope Valley, being that that golf course kind of runs through the center here. So you're going to see pretty nice neighborhoods for the most part in here. Some are going to be more expensive than others, some are going to be less expensive. But, lots of good neighborhoods in here, and, Durham as a whole kind of gets overlooked. A lot of people who call in off the channel, they want to go straight to Cary, and then once we start talking about what their actual needs are, talking about their budget, a lot of times this central portion of Durham is going to be a good fit for them, and we have to have that conversation of, hey, are you open-minded? And that's what I asked you at the beginning of the video is, are you open-minded to exploring all the different parts of the triangle? And then let's have a detailed conversation specific to you and really break down what's important for you. And if you're not quite ready yet, that's fine. Friendly reminder to check out that relocation guide that I made at www.raleighncguide.com/2026. You want to start there, and then when you're ready, give us a call. Last little pocket of Durham that we have not looked at yet is this little bubble down here. Very competitive neighborhood sandwiched between Duke and Chapel Hill. Prices are going to start in the 400s and go up from there. We do not see properties in here stay on market very long. I just wrote an offer with a client in this neighborhood. Asking price, it had been on market for a few days, and we lost to an offer that was tens of thousands of dollars above asking, and on top of that, they offered a 6-figure due diligence. Due diligence, if you're unfamiliar, is literally money that you do not get back. It earns you the right to inspect a property here in North Carolina. So they risked over $100,000 just to get it under contract. That's kind of what happens in here, and that is also kind of what we see in Chapel Hill. Chapel Hill is a completely separate beast from the rest of the triangle for many, many reasons. One, it is very HOA driven. Two, it does have the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, which is going to, drive it as kind of like a college town. But then a lot of the communities outside of that bubble are gonna lean more towards retirees, 55 plus. We see a lot of communities like that here in Chapel Hill. When you drive through Chapel Hill, you get the feeling that it's nice, it's established, and it's very premium. And you will see a lot of old money, so to speak, in Chapel Hill. A lot of, master planned estates, large lots, and the prices in Chapel Hill are some of the most premium in the entire triangle, pretty much pricing out most people, unless you're really needing to be in Chapel Hill for school or for work, or again, you're trying to look into some of their amazing retirement communities. When it comes to Chapel Hill, you have two kind of main buckets in addition to more the campus style. Your north side is really gonna be where you're gonna have more of your established neighborhoods. This is where your families might live. This is where your 55 plus communities would be. It's where you're gonna see a lot of your shopping, your amenities, Trader Joe's, that kind of stuff, right? Your YMCAs. The southeast portion is that campus and surrounding, and then a lot of, farms and reserves and parks. This west side here on Carrboro is your indie side. This is, kind of like how Durham is very artsy. You kind of have that feel here in Carrboro. You're gonna have more local cafes, local restaurants. You have the Cat's Cradle, entertainment venue. You have street markets, all sorts of breweries. This is kind of the urban, artsy section that a lot of the college students are gonna go live and shop in. So a lot of the student housing, a lot of where students choose to live is gonna be on this west side. And people really like it because it's very walkable. It gives you kind of like a downtown vibe. And with that, this is one of the most expensive parts of Chapel Hill here in Carrboro, where the median home price is well over $700,000 and it goes up from there. The cheapest part of the entire area is going to be as you start getting into these lower segments like Dogwood Acres and Southern Village, where they're nice, but they're definitely on the outskirts and you're really driving in to get to anything. If you spend some time in Chapel Hill and you decide you really like the vibe, you like the people, and it's the kind of place that you do want to be in, you just have to be okay with being in your own bubble. You have to be okay with paying premium prices, where really to buy a single family home, you are talking $700 and up pretty much anywhere in Chapel Hill. And even though there is a good mix of new construction communities, there's not near as many opportunities, especially on the affordable end, as you'll find in East Durham or as you'll find in some of the other Raleigh suburbs that we've talked about on today's video. And with that, we have just officially covered the entire triangle. This is literally everything you need to know before you make the move here. The only thing you have left to do is to reach out at the number at the bottom of the video, scan that QR code, or click the link in the description so we can book that exploration call and actually open up the map with you and deep dive into these areas and help you really figure out which is going to be the right fit for you. So book that when you're ready. In the meantime, if you want to see a detailed map tour of all of Raleigh, much more in depth than we went in today's video, then make sure you watch this video next.